Good morning everybody, good morning, it's JPR and welcome back to another video. Pokemon's motto may be gotta catch 'em all, but they failed to include the part that some will be much harder to catch than others. Today I'll be going over some of the most frustrating hunts that every region has to offer, whether it be through incredibly low encounter rates or absolutely ludicrous and long-winded methods. Now it's worth noting that I will not be including Pokemon with very low encounter rates that evolve from more common Pokemon. For example, in Pokemon Black and White, there's a 1% chance of fishing up a wild Dragonite at the Dragon Spiral Tower, but you could just catch the 60% Dratini encounter and level it up instead, so what's wrong with you? Why are you wasting your time on Dragonite? Are you that desperate to flex on your friends? At any rate, don't be surprised if a lot of these end up being single-stage Pokemon. But before we get into things, I'd like to thank NordVPN for being the sponsor of today's video. That's right, NordVPN is back with another great deal to help protect your online privacy. With more than 5,000 worldwide servers to connect to and blistering fast speeds, NordVPN is an essential service for nearly every device you own. And as a brand new feature, they're introducing threat protection to help further steer you away from infected files, web trackers, and more. A great tool for a cleaner and improved browsing experience. And not only will NordVPN help protect your online privacy, it can also help you reach block content that isn't available in your country, like certain video games or shows on Netflix. And right now, you can get a 2-year deal with 1 extra month free and a massive discount by using my link down below, nordvpn.com/JPR. It's even risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you, NordVPN. Back to the video. In Kanto, and this shouldn't come to anyone's surprise, it's literally in the name, Chansey, the Pokemon most associated with luck. During the main story, it can only be found in the Safari Zone at a 1% encounter rate, not to mention it has a catch rate of 30 or just below 9% when you throw a Safari Ball at it. Ah, just kidding. The Kanto Safari Zone has an additional mechanic called Catch Factor that further lowers Chansey's catch rate down to 5%. It's also a member of the group with the highest Safari Zone flea rates, with a base flea rate of 45%, or as high as 90% if you throw a rock at it and make it angry. But there is some good news here, thanks to a loophole in the mechanics. Because Chansey's catch factor is 2, and the game makes it so that using bait or rocks cannot lower a Pokemon's catch factor below 3, Chansey is actually the only Pokemon that becomes both easier to catch and less likely to flee when you throw bait at it, as it will actually kick the catch factor up. This will raise Chansey's catch rate to 8% and lower its flee rate all the way to 10%. The odds still aren't in your favor, but there's no reason to not use the bait every chance you get. But in the Gen 1 games and in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, you can completely bypass this entire headache just by waiting to go to Cerulean Cave, where Chansey has an encounter rate of 10% and it can't flee like it can in the Safari Zone. Unfortunately, this is not the case in Fire Red and Leaf Green, as Chansey is removed from Cerulean Cave, meaning you have to go through that tedious process in the Safari Zone if you want to complete your Pokedex. But Fire Red and Leaf Green do have something arguably worse than Chansey, and that is a Pokemon that you may only get one shot at. That Pokemon is either Raikou or Entei, depending on the starter that you chose. Like in the Johto games, the beasts will roam the Kanto region in the post-game, but unlike other roaming legendaries, these beasts will engage in combat with you when encountered. And because of a glitch in these games, if Raikou or Entei use Roar against you, they will permanently vanish from the region and can no longer be tracked through the Pokedex. So if you want to catch a legendary beast in these games, either save your Master Ball or choose Charmander so that Suicune will be your designated beast, as it's the only one that doesn't know Roar. In Generation 2, the rarest Pokemon is once again Chansey, as it can only be found on routes 13, 14, and 15 at a 1% rate, and unlike other Gen 2 Pokemon, which we'll talk about in a second, its odds cannot be boosted by a swarm. But perhaps an even more cruel and unusual punishment than hunting Chansey for a second generation in a row is the way that you get Aerodactyl in this gen. You have to trade Chansey for it. You have got to be kidding me. Fortunately, Heart Gold and Soul Silver would make both of these Pokemon easier to obtain, as Chansey can be added to the Johto Safari Zone, and Aerodactyl can once again be revived for the Old Amber at the Pewter City Museum. Now, there are a couple of Gen 2 Pokemon that have 1% encounter rates in Gold and Silver, those being Dunsparce and Snubbull. However, as mentioned before, you can boost their encounter rates to 30% if a swarm or mass outbreak is reported via the phone. For this to happen, you need Hiker Anthony's phone number for Dunsparce and Schoolboy Chad's phone number for Snubbull. Strictly speaking, in Gen 2 though, Dunsparce is the more rare of the two, since Snubbull gets multiple routes added with a 30% encounter rate in Crystal. However, this flips the opposite way in the remakes, as Snubbull loses its Crystal locations and goes back to a mere 1% rate on Route 38, and Dunsparce gets another encounter method added within Dark Cave as a 90% Rock Smash encounter, making it far easier to obtain even without an outbreak. So purely for Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Snubbull is the region's rarest Pokemon. Although I guess if you want to be technical about it and say that Chansey and Aerodactyl only appear in the Kanto postgame, then Dunsparce could be seen as the rarest Johto Pokemon in Gen 2. Oh, the irony. And for just the original Gen 2 games, here are a couple more dishonorable mentions. In Gold and Silver, Slugma is found on the routes surrounding the Kanto cycling road with a 5% encounter rate during the day only. And Houndour can be found on Kanto Route 7 with a 5% encounter rate at night, though Crystal raises this to a 20% chance, and in the remakes, Houndour can be added to the Johto Safari Zone in the post-game only. What is wrong with this generation? Okay, so we all know about Feebas, right? It can only be found in 6 random tiles in the river on Route 119, and you won't even know if it's a Feebas tile until you get a bite on literally all of them, and it's stupid and dumb, and nobody likes it. Okay, yeah, moving on. Percent-wise, the rarest Hoenn Pokemon is Surskit with a 1% encounter rate on various routes. Illumise also has a 1% encounter rate on Route 117 in Sapphire only, but Volbeat has the 1% chance in Ruby and Emerald, making it the slightly more rare of the two. But I would say that Emerald Surskit is by far the most ludicrous of them all, because in Emerald, Surskit doesn't actually appear in the region at all unless you whip out the good old link cable and mix records with a friend who has Ruby or Sapphire and add it to your encounter table. And despite all of that work, it's still only 1%. The saving grace is that Surskit is added as a randomly occurring mass outbreak in this game, but again, only after mixing records. Previously, Skitty was the only mass outbreak Pokemon in Ruby and Sapphire, boosting its encounter chances from 2% to 50%. If mass outbreaks and version exclusives are excluded though, Chimecho is the region's rarest Pokemon with a 2% spawn rate on Mount Pyre. However, in the remakes, all of these Pokemon have boosted encounter rates, and only Volbeat and Illumise are left below 5%, with Volbeat being a 4% encounter in Omega Ruby, and Illumise being a 4% encounter in Alpha Sapphire. Even Feebas has become a much easier find, as it's always beneath the bridge on Route 119 now. It's okay though, because there's still one absolutely ridiculous encounter in Oras, even though it's not odds-based like the others, that being Regigigas. To obtain Regigigas, you need to go through the whole traditional Regi quest that involves catching Relicanth and Wailord to open the sealed chamber, then you have to catch the 3 Regis, then nickname your Regi-Ice, and give it something cold to hold, so either a Castelia Cone, a Snowball, an Icy Rock, or a Never Melt Ice. And then you have to go to the Island Cave during the morning or day, and boom, there you go, it's a Regigigas. And oh, by the way, none of this was ever explained in-game or through any interviews that I could find, so I imagine this was done purely as a way of poking fun at all of those classic fan theories on how to find Pokemon like Mew or Deoxys. I mean, really, if the internet didn't exist, how are you supposed to explain this to a friend and have them not think that you were absolutely insane? So the Sinnoh region's rarest Pokemon is a very well-documented one, Munchlax, and let me tell you, I've read college textbooks that were easier to understand than how Honeytree odds are calculated, but I think I got the gist of it. So basically, when you put honey on a tree and then wait several hours for a Pokemon to show up, when you come back you will randomly encounter a Pokemon from one of 3 groups. There's a 70% chance that the tree has been put in Group A, which usually consists of very basic common Pokemon. There's a 20% chance that the tree has been assigned to Group 2, which are considerably rarer Pokemon, and a 10% chance that the tree has been assigned to Group C, which many people commonly just refer to as a Munchlax tree at that point. Because Munchlax is the only Pokemon in that group. The catch is that it's only a 10% chance of being Munchlax, and 90% of the time there just won't be a Pokemon there at all. So if you've ever found a honey tree with no Pokemon there, it means that Munchlax already ate and took off, and there was nothing that you could do about it. So it's 10% of a 10% chance, which essentially makes it yet another 1% encounter, and you can only farm a few encounters every few hours because of the way the trees work. It's very slow, and ironically enough, the only person in Sinnoh with enough patience to do this was Barry! Now I know what you're thinking, wow, these 1% encounter rates are pretty ridiculous, but you know, surprisingly, there's only a 15% chance of finding a wild JPR subscriber watching this video, so if you're enjoying the video, I'd greatly appreciate if you'd help by boosting the encounter rate a bit. Okay, but seriously, 1% is actually not the lowest a Pokemon's encounter rate can get. In Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, hidden grottos were introduced as a new method of finding special Pokemon that may have hidden abilities. However, there is only a 20% chance that a Pokemon will be found in the grotto for every 256 steps you take. So generally, most hidden grottos have their encounters broken down like this: 15% for a common spawn, 4% for an uncommon spawn, and 1% for a rare spawn. Think of it like a faster version of the Honey Tree encounters from Gen 4. However, sometimes these slots can be split by 2 Pokemon, and in the Lost Lorn Forest, Heracross and Pinsir split the 1% slot. So in Pokemon Black 2, Heracross's encounter rate is 0.75% and Pinsir is 0.25%, with the rates being inverted in White 2. Additionally, in Black 2, this is the only place where Pinsir can be encountered, and in White 2, this is Heracross's only location. So at 0.25% in their respective versions, these 2 Pokemon are tied for having the rarest spawn of any Pokemon ever. And I'll go ahead and flex, because in my last White 2 Nuzlocke, my Lost Lorn Forest encounter was this Heracross. Yes! But if you're looking for an actual Gen 5 Pokemon, look no further than Cryogonal in both the original Black and White as well as the sequels. In Twist Mountain, it only has a 1% encounter rate, except in Winter where those odds are boosted to a measly 5%. In the Kalos region, with the exception of White Flower Flabebe and the supersized Pumpkaboo, I was unable to find any Pokemon with an encounter rate below 5%. There is a 1% Lapras encounter on Route 12 and a 1% Abomasnow encounter on Route 17, but Lapras is literally given to you on the same route, and Snover of the same level can be found at a 30% rate, which means that those two are off the table. So for this region, my pick is the mischievous Pokemon Rotom, who can only be found in the shaking trash bins at the Lost Hotel on Tuesday nights! Okay, it's not actually at night, it's just Tuesday in general. But don't think that'll save you from the hash-slinging slasher. While Rotom is the only Pokemon inside the trash bins on Tuesdays, it is worth noting that the chance of finding a Pokemon inside one is still relatively low, and if you check all the bins without finding anything, you'll either have to soft reset or wait at least an hour for the trash bins to reset naturally. But once the bin does finally shake, it's a 75% chance of finding a normal Rotom, and then 5% for each of its alternate forms. However, you can simply catch the normal one and change its form manually at Professor Sycamore's lab. Bayonet can also be found through this method in the Pokemon Village trash cans on Thursdays, but its pre-evolution Shuppet can be found more easily in the Friend Safari, so I'm giving the edge to Rotom for Kalos. In the Alola region, the hardest Pokemon to obtain, without a guide at least, is Mareanie. Mareanie cannot be found anywhere on its own in the region, as it has to be accidentally summoned by a Corsola in an SOS battle. Corsola itself is a tough find, only having a 1% chance of being fished up in Melee Sea, but that chance can be increased to 20% at a bubbling fishing spot. However, if you find an item or another Pokemon, the bubbles will disappear and you'll have to reset the area to try again. If you're playing the game blind though, your only hints towards finding Mareanie stem from random NPCs talking about how Corsola is hunted by another Pokemon, or by Corsola's dex entries in Moon and Ultramoon which mention Mareanie by name. Sorry, Sun players, you didn't get nearly as much help with this one, but hey, at least now you know that Corsola's branches grow back in 3 days. Gee, I was getting worried. Now, I know everyone is gonna ask, what about the Route 1 Salamence that can only be summoned by a 1% Bagon encounter? Yeah, I would say that's a much harder encounter to get, but obtaining the Pokemon itself isn't nearly as big of a hurdle. In the Kalai Bay, Bagon can be found at a much higher 10% rate. Sure, this one can't summon a Salamence, it can only summon Shelgon, but hey, if you're trying to fill in the whole dex, you may as well go for this one instead. But I won't deny it, trying to catch a Salamence on Route 1 with presumably only Pokeballs is undoubtedly a much harder challenge than finding Mareanie, so maybe it could go either way. In the Galar region, there are 2 particularly hard to find Pokemon. The first is, unsurprisingly, Dreepy. Dreeny can only spawn in the wild at the Lake of Outrage, with a 1% rate in cloudy weather and 2% when it's thunderstorming or foggy. But ironically enough, it's slightly easier to find a Dreepy in the very first section of the wild area, the Rolling Fields, through a raid battle. If you've progressed far enough in the game to unlock 2 and 3 star raids, which is only about 3 gym badges, then you can use wishing pieces at specific dens to spawn a Dreepy raid. However, Dreepy can only be found here if it's a rare den raid, or the ones with the giant purple beams and swirling clouds, and those only have a 12.5% chance of appearing. So if you've only unlocked up to 3 star raids, then you have a 67% chance of spawning a 2 or 3 star one, times that by 12.5% and you get an 8.4% of it being rare, times that by Dreepy's rate, which is 20%, and you get a whopping 1.7% chance of spawning Dreepy. Which, if you're playing the main story and there's no thunderstorm at the Lake of Outrage, this is the best shot that you have. Personally, I would just wait for the proper weather at the lake, since Dreepy is at least a visible encounter there, making it a far faster hunt than resetting at a raid den, but the trade-off is that you can't get Dreepy nearly as early in the game. Not that you'd want to, though, Dreepy kinda sucks. But Dreepy is not actually the hardest new Pokemon to find in Gen 8. That honor goes to Zen Mode Galarian Darmanitan, which can only be found as a hidden ability through max raid battles. You have to spawn in a 5-star raid at the Giant's Cap, Hammerlock Hills, or Lake of Outrage, so a 20% chance, and it has to be a rare raid once again for the chance of a hidden ability being higher, so again, multiply by 12.5%, then it's a 10% chance of actually being a Darmanitan, and after all of that, it's still only about a 30% chance of having its hidden ability Zen Mode. I say about 30% because sadly after all this time there still isn't a lot that we know about raid dens, we still don't have solid numbers, just guesstimates. So after plugging in all of that math, there is roughly a 0.075% chance of getting a Zen Mode Galarian Darmanitan, quite possibly making it the hardest form of a Pokemon to get, not including Spinda. Now I know what some of you may be thinking, JPR, what about Darumaka? You can get Darumaka through raids, wouldn't that be way easier? Well, the fine gentleman over at Game Freak generously decided that Darumaka's hidden ability would not be available through any of its 9 different raid locations. The only silver lining here is that there is an abusable loophole that makes it easy to just re-roll in the 5-star rare den over and over again, so you only have to worry about finding the Darmanitan with Zen Mode at that point, which is a much better 3% chance. And as for me, a person whose favorite Gen 8 Pokemon is literally Zen Mode Galarian Darmanitan, my advice would be screw that entire process and just import a female Unova Zen Mode Darmanitan to breed with a Ditto with a 60% chance of passing down the ability. Yes, a Unova Darmanitan will give birth to Galarian babies as long as you're breeding in the Galar region. Because, logic. I guarantee you'll have a few less white hairs doing it that way. And with that, we have gone over some of the most frustrating finds in every Pokemon region. I hope you enjoyed hearing about them more than actually doing them yourself. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, it really helps me out, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. I'll see you guys next time.